Welcome to the second episode of the Sing When You're Losing, your bi-weekly look at the intersection of sports, faith, and culture. I'm your host, Buddy Owen. And today in the studio with me, we have Mr. Johnny Brennan.
Hello.
Hello, Johnny. How are you today?
I'm good. You let me back.
Well, yes. I just couldn't find anyone else. I did look long and hard. But no, you're back, and it's so good to see you. And then again on the Skype line from Jersey with the cows, it's Ben Cutting. How are you, Ben?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you guys?
Good. Yeah, we're good. Not too bad. How's life in Jersey?
Life is good. The weather is glorious. The sun is shining. Everyone's happy.
Really? It's not raining?
Yeah. It's not at the moment. No, it's a glorious, glorious day today.
Excellent.
Ben, I've been waiting for like 2 weeks now. I need to know another fact about Jersey.
Yeah, come on then.
You want it now?
Yeah.
Let's get it out of the way.
Okay. So Jersey, it receives the most sunlight out of anywhere in the British Isles.
Book me on a flight.
But
yeah, go to jersey.com, #TheIslandBreak, although this is not sponsored, but you can come and visit me in Jersey.
Yeah, but that's like Jersey has the most sunshine of anywhere in the British Isles, is like saying it's rainier in the African rainforest than it is in the Brazilian rainforest. I mean, it's a horrible comparison. I
don't make these facts up. So I go to the official fact person in Jersey, of which there is one, and he sits in a chair in the middle of the town square. And you can go to him and ask him all facts about Jersey.
The old wise man.
He said, that is what he said. And so I am coming at you with facts aplenty. Same time in 2 weeks.
More sun in Jersey. Yeah, it's just not saying a lot, is it?
I've never been to Jersey.
It's February and I'm sunburnt. So
yeah, and
but what? Hang on.
Yeah,
that's not fair, because I've been watching your Instagram stories this week, and you've not even been in Jersey the last week, have you?
No, that's true. I've been in probably one of the coldest places I've ever been. I was in Iceland.
Iceland.
I went to Iceland on a little holiday with my siblings, which was
nice.
lovely.
Did you see Santa?
No, that's Lapland.
It is, yeah.
I think.
We're off to a great start again, boys.
Did I see Santa this week? No, I didn't.
Iceland. Was it pretty? Was it beautiful?
Lovely.
Yeah.
Stunning. Absolutely stunning place.
Nice.
Definitely recommend, but again, not sponsored in any way.
We'll work on that. If anyone for the Iceland Air is listening. So finally, we do have a special guest with us in the studio today, and that is because we all determined last time that none of the three of us are great with rugby. And it's not that we don't like rugby, we're just not great with rugby. So I searched long and hard over the last 2 weeks to find someone who could come in and give us a rugby view of things. And I ran into someone in the gym the other day whose name is Andrew Soutar. And Andrew's in the studio with us today. He'll be joining us throughout the conversation. Andrew, can you just quickly tell us who you are and what it is you kind of do for a living?
Yeah, I work for England Rugby. I look after the area Merseyside, which is north of England, if you don't know. My job is to look after all the rugby clubs on Merseyside, which entails helping them grow the players within the game itself, but also try and keep the players they've currently got within the clubs. So we work with the facilities, the pitches, the players, the volunteers, trying to keep everyone happy within the club.
Amazing. So kind of grassroots stuff is a lot of what you do.
Yeah, it's more grassroots rugby. So we work with a lot of rugby clubs start at under sevens, and then all the way to senior rugby and women's and girls as well.
Excellent. And that's just Merseyside, or
so I cover just Merseyside.
Okay.
There is currently 52 people across England who do my job, and all split up into different regions. So there's quite a lot of us on the ground.
Excellent. So you know a little bit about rugby then?
Yeah, well, I've been playing it since I was 8. Someone who does my job come into my school and got me playing rugby. Carried on playing throughout when I was young. Went to university, carried on playing. And then as soon as I come out of university, I got the job similar to what I'm doing now.
Okay. And you still play rugby now?
Yeah, I play at Cowley on the Wirral, currently in National 1, that's basically 2 off the Premiership.
Yeah.
So it's a decent standard.
Got promoted last year?
Yeah, we did, we had a great year last year. It's the first year I've picked up an injury, so I missed quite a bit of the season. So it was quite unlucky for myself, really.
And it was a bit of worry, obviously, having just come up, trying to be able to fund the program to stay up. But you're doing all right this year, aren't you?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. We're in a good position at the minute. We've got 8 games to go. A lot of the teams that we're playing have got a huge playing budget where we've kept the players we've got. Thought if we go up, let's stay there as long as we can. Let's not throw the cash ball and sign some players because, one, we haven't got the cash, and the other one, the travelling's massive. Our closest game is Blackpool, which is now 40 for the lads. Our furthest game away is Plymouth.
Wow.
So it's quite a lot of travelling for the lads, especially because they've all got jobs and families.
So you're all part-time?
Yeah, we train Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and a half, and then we play on a Saturday. So it's not a massive amount of time training to get the lads together. We look at some teams in our league are professional, so they train 4, 5, 6 times a week.
Wow. Okay. So it's great to have Andrew with us. And in just a few minutes, we'll talk a bit more about rugby and the Six Nations. But before we do, we just want you to get a chance to get to know us, the hosts, a little bit better, this being just the second episode. So I've asked the guys to give us their kind of biggest ever sporting achievements. We want to show you how qualified we are to be hosting a sports podcast. And we're going to start with Johnny to give us his biggest ever sporting achievement.
So this is Johnny Brennan. This will be my last show if we're basing it on sporting achievements. I am a keen watcher of sports and I try and play sports, but in my younger days was not as fit as I would have liked to have been. And so
you're beautiful, Johnny.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. My greatest sporting achievement was when I was in year 5 and 6 in school, so primary school. I started playing for Wirral Rugby Club and played for them for 2 years, and then went to secondary school. And my secondary school, rugby was the sport, and so when they grouped us in the sports classes, they did it on a cross country run. So I got placed in the lowest group. And then the first week we were doing rugby, and so they bumped me straight up to the A team because I played rugby. And so that was one of my greatest sporting achievements, was going from bottom to top in a very quick amount of time. Unfortunately, we did 6 weeks of rugby, and then the next 6 weeks we did cross country, so I got chucked right back down again. But also, yeah, I played rugby the whole way through secondary school and managed to win a couple of tournaments and captain the second team when I was in sixth form, which was a huge achievement because a lot of the lads who played in my school were playing for, were getting scouted and kind of thing. So, and I wasn't, but I got to captain a team that we won a massive tournament. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Johnny. So Johnny's greatest sporting achievement is captaining the second team. Wonderful. Thanks. Ben, greatest sporting achievement?
I won a table tennis competition at a family holiday in 2009. I beat my dad in the final, and it was a wonderful day.
I'm sure he was so proud.
He was devastated. He was literally devastated. Greatest sporting achievement. My greatest sporting achievement was 2 years ago. I moved to Jersey, and I joined the best team on the island. I just wanted to see how I would fit into it.
The best team, so I just decided at cow herding.
Football.
Oh, football.
Football. Okay. Yeah, yeah, massive cow herding sport here. But no, I joined the football team and called St Paul's, which I joined basically because they were the best, and also the church that I work for is called St Paul's. And
so they couldn't not have you on the team.
They couldn't not. I mean, they tried. I spent a lot of time on the bench, and we got through to the final, and one of the guys got injured, and I spent a lot of time on the bench all season. And during the cup final, I got the call up to start the game, and we won it 3-2, and I scored the winner.
Wow!
And so we won the Larish Trophy, and I still haven't received my medal. So if anyone from Jersey FA is listening, I would like my medal, because there's a picture of me in the newspaper that I still haven't received my medal. So it does count.
So that was winning the championship in the. Was that just specifically a church cup league?
No. This is basically, it's called the Jersey Combination League. So it's the Jersey Premiership. So you imagine Prem League in
Jersey
England.
Premiership.
This is the top level. This is the highest level you can obtain in this
Jersey.
massive island.
What you can't
Jersey
see
Premiership.
because you're listening to the podcast is how happy Ben looks right now. So on our little Skype thing, he is just beaming from ear to ear. He's doing celebrations now and
waving to the crowd. Wonderful.
I'm buzzing. So that was a great day. That was a really good day for me.
Well, I guess that's me now then. Greatest sporting achievement. Played lots of sports growing up. I remember vividly missing a penalty kick for my high school soccer team that would have sent us to the state championship. Dragged it wide left. I can still see it missing the post to the left. That was heartbreaking.
if it helps, I can imagine you doing that.
Yeah.
Having seen you play football.
I can remember. I sprained my ankle in the state basketball championship, and
Did you realise the question was, what's your greatest sports achievement?
Yeah.
Not just a list of it. We'll be here all day if you tell us your injuries.
I know, but these are my greatest sporting achievements, is when I was injured. But I sprained my ankle in a game that we lost, and then had to go back the next day to play the third place playoff. And with a sprained ankle, scored 43 points, and we won that game. But we finished third, which isn't really an achievement, especially as a competitive American. You may as well not even have tried. And then I guess my greatest sporting achievement was just the fact that I managed to play football, American football at university. So having not played much in high school because of injuries and moving around, played at university, and that was good. I really enjoyed that at Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So any of my friends listening back in the States, hi. So moving on from the sporting achievements, just want to pick up on a couple of things that came up in the first podcast and just update you. Firstly, you will remember that we had Jazza Dickens here last time, the Scouse boxer. And Jazza was talking about the possibility of a rematch to get his British title back. And that has now been granted. So if you're on Twitter or Facebook and want to, or Instagram, want to give Jazza a nod, then please do that. Congratulate him. He has a warm-up fight coming up on the 2nd of March as well, which he texted me and asked us to pray for him. So if you want to do that, great. That's the 2nd of March. And then his title rematch date hasn't been approved yet. So we'll find out that soon. The second thing I wanted to pick up, and this came up in a conversation with, I think, Ben, you brought up Swansea and their hope to survive in the Premier League this year. And then out of that conversation, we kind of got talking about the bringing in of new managers and how effective that is when teams do that in the middle of the season. Do you remember that conversation?
I do. Yes, I do remember that.
So I went away in with the help of some friends, some good friends at LFC, actually, Liverpool Football Club, who helped me out here with some statistics, managed to get some information. And so I got the information for the last 3 seasons, so not counting this year, so 2014-15, 15-16, 16-17, the number of managerial changes that were made during the season, and then the winning percentages pre the new manager and then post the new manager for the rest of that season. Okay? So let me ask you, there were, over the last 3 seasons, there were exactly 18 changes made. So that's 6, obviously, per season. And it broke down like that, 6 per season. How many of those changes do you think the new manager coming in had a better winning percentage than the manager who went out for the remainder of the season? Any ideas, guys?
I'm going to go 5 out of 6.
So what do you 5 out of 6 for each season?
Yes.
So you're saying that 15 had a better winning 15 of 18 had a better winning percentage.
Yes, I'm optimistic.
Okay.
I would say a lot less. I will go for 7. 7 managers had a better.
7 out of 18 had a better winning percentage. Okay.
I think it's tough because I think managers can have that kind of honeymoon period when they first come in, and that can kind of skew people's viewpoint on it. I am going to go in the middle. And if I can do my maths right quickly, that's around 11.
Okay, so 7, 11, and 15. Well, I was surprised. Ben, you're the closest. It is 14 of 18 had a better winning percentage than the manager they replaced. And out of those 14 that had a better winning percentage, 13 of the 14 managed to improve the league position of the club. So there was one of those who, though the winning percentage was better, the club didn't move. And that was actually at Swansea. I think it was Bradley who did have a better winning percentage than a manager he replaced, but didn't move the club.
Yeah.
And then with those, there were 8 out of the 18 changes where the new manager coming in was taking over a team that was in the relegation zone. Right? So 8 out of those 18. Swansea had 2 of them in one season, so it wasn't necessarily 8 different clubs, but 8 out of the 18 took over clubs in the relegation zone. How many of those do you think managed to get the team out of the relegation zone?
I think Sam Allardyce has done half for them, hasn't he?
It's not you two in.
Oh, man.
I will go out of 8.
Out of 8.
I'll go for 6.
Okay, 6.
I'm going to go for 8.
Oh.
8.
I don't think it's that simple. I think a lot of it depends on when they take over as well, doesn't it? I suppose. So I definitely remember Alan Shearer taking over at Newcastle, and they still went down. So I think you're wrong, Ben. But I think it depends when. I'm going to go halfway again.
Okay.
I just love sitting on the fence.
So out of the 8 that were in the relegation zone, only 3 came out of the relegation zone.
Wow.
In 3 seasons.
Oh, I've just understood the question.
Oh, it's really convenient, that Ben, when you got it wrong.
I meant to say 3, of course.
Of course you did. Yeah. And then I guess the most interesting one of this. So if we were thinking about the effectiveness, what you're trying to accomplish, no teams who changed their manager went from outside of the relegation zone into the relegation zone. And I thought that was really interesting. So with that argument, you could say, if you feel like you're failing,
change your manager.
Because none of them went from outside to in. So that was fascinating. So that's just a recap kind of from last time and just a bit of new information.
A big thanks to the person that has gone away and has done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Liverpool, that is decent statistics.
Some decent stats there, aren't there? So yeah, thanks to my friends over there. Now we're going to move on now to the hit for 6. These are 6 topics that have come up over the last couple of weeks within the world of sports, and we're going to start by something that in this country just seems a bit odd anyway. But the Philadelphia Eagles, we discussed last time, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, beating the New England Patriots, thankfully. Whoop. And it's tradition when someone wins the Super Bowl, the World Series, which is baseball, the national championship in college football, the NBA championship, whatever, that the president invites the winning team to the White House. It's a privilege to be invited to the White House by the president when you win. Now, we'll just stop there for a minute. Why doesn't the prime minister do that? Would that be seen as a privilege for the prime minister to invite the Premier League winning team?
Hasn't the Queen done something like that before?
They done it with the Ashes, didn't they?
Yeah, Ashes and like Olympics, that kind of thing. Big. I'm sure the Queen's done something like that. I might be wrong.
Yeah, definitely the Ashes.
I think you're right about the Ashes, yeah.
I remember Freddie Flintoff
rolling off the bus. Yeah, it definitely happened.
And I actually remember in 2009 when I beat my dad at that table tennis competition, I was invited to go to Buckingham Palace, but I just had something else on that day.
Yeah.
So I just actually couldn't make it. But I think she does. I think
herding the cows.
No flights out of Jersey that day. Yeah, so I guess, if the Queen invites you to the palace, then you're probably going to go, aren't you?
I think you are,
100%.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah.
But she's lovely.
She is.
I mean, I'm not a royalist at all, really, but she is a lovely lady, isn't she?
She's wonderful.
She's
grandma. She's grandma.
She is.
She's
She's
grandma.
everybody's grandma. And she's inoffensive, isn't she? But this idea of the president inviting you into the White House, now that's, for some reason, that's a little bit different, it seems. It should still be a privilege though, right?
It should be, but if you've got certain beliefs about the person in charge, you may not want to attend.
It becomes political then, doesn't it? I think the potential. Okay, so there are people that have political viewpoints about the monarchy in this country, but in that context of the president inviting you in, there is already a stigma, because he represents or she represents a political party, and therefore if you have different views to that, etc., etc. Now, I don't think it's been a massive issue. I might be wrong, and you can correct me, but I don't think it's been as big of an issue as it has been in the last year, maybe?
Year and a bit, yeah.
Year and a bit.
Yeah, so with the recent Super Bowl winners, and actually last year as well, the being invited into the White House it's been a bit tarnished. So this year, at least 3, possibly 4 of the Philadelphia Eagles have said that they would not accept their invitation to the White House, not because it's the White House, but because of who the president is. Now, there was an article that I read in it's the Inquirer Daily News. It's a Philadelphia newspaper by a guy named Michael. His last name is, I'm going to mispronounce it, but I think it's Smirkonish. And he says that the players should go anyway out of respect for the office, if not the person. What do we think about that? So ignore who the person is, but respect the office of the presidency. Yeah, I agree.
I think it's hard to... I think it's really difficult to separate the two. Because of the person in charge and his polarizing gift of polarizing people. I think I understand where these players are coming from. They potentially think that even just attending something is endorsing him, potentially. And it's a really, really tricky one. But it also happened with the NBA players, didn't it?
Yeah,
Earlier
Steph
on
Curry.
in the year. And the president's reaction to that wasn't as how can I say presidential as you might expect the leader of the free world to be. He just basically turned around and said, "Well, I didn't invite you anyway."
Yeah,
and all over his Twitter profile. So I think that I do think that kind of maybe has played into things as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that. And we'll move on to the second hit for six, which is it's a horrible one to bring up, and we won't spend long discussing it. And perhaps we'll come back to it on a later podcast. But the sex abuse, child sex abuse scandals that have come out recently. So obviously Barry Bennell, recently sentenced, who abused at least 50 young men apparently. Then you've got the Larry Nassar story from U.S. Gymnastics, who has abused at least 156. And there's just more. There's more and more coming out regularly about these abuses and this abuse of power that these men are taking those vulnerable people under their care and using their power to abuse them.
We're recording this on a Thursday lunchtime, and today it's just come out about Kieran Dyer, hasn't it? And how he had been abused for a number of years, wasn't it?
Sure, yeah. He was on TalkSport this morning promoting his new book, which, if you have a chance, it's Old Too Soon, Smart Too Late, My Story, by Kieran Dyer, where he tells his story, and he suffered apparently 20 years of abuse. It's why? How does this happen? How does it happen? How are these men allowed to get away with this for so long?
I think if you look at it, it's in the professional environment a lot of the times, and these kids, children, they see themselves as want to become professional sports athletes. And because that coach is either the person in charge, the role model, or the person who can help them get there, a lot of people will just, I don't know what the word is.
It's trust, isn't it?
They trust that person. So some people may see it as the norm until they grow old enough to understand that it's not. Or some people will do anything in a way to try and get them to the top of their professional sport.
Yeah. So it is the abuse of power, isn't it? I have something you want, so you give me what I want, and then I'll give you what you want. A complete abuse of power. The wrong way around from the way our world should work.
Yep. I think one of my favourite quotes of all time is it's from Spider-Man, actually. And it's a simple quote that says, "With great power comes great responsibility." And it is heartbreaking to know that so many young people have been subject to this because someone's had power and they've not used their they've not been responsible with it, and they've used it for their own gain and not looking out for that young person. It's heartbreaking. It's not something we should have to talk about in this day and age. But it seems more and more regularly that it's happening, and I'm glad it's out in the public sphere. I'm glad people are knowing about it, and I know certainly I've been a youth worker for the last 10 years, and safeguarding and protection of young people has been so much moved forward, if that's the correct grammar. But it just shouldn't happen in this day and age, and it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and Andy Woodward was the first player to come forward from Coventry, and he's set up a trust called the Offside Trust for those in football who want someone to talk to, need to go somewhere for support, and we just want to encourage anyone listening to this who has suffered, male or female, that there's no shame in coming forward.
Absolutely,
and there is healing for those who come forward. There is a way out, and there is a way through. So don't allow the shame to stop you. We're going to move on with our hit for six. we've got Ben. Why don't you launch in now?
Yeah, so mine is obviously we've had the Winter Olympics and have the Winter Olympics at the moment. And from the little bits I've seen, it's been amazing and I've loved it. And so I wanted to know, obviously with the Shaun White particularly coming back after 8 years and winning gold in the snowboarding halfpipe, what is your favourite Olympic moment? Summer or winter? What's your guys' favourite Olympic moment?
Am I going first?
Go for it.
Thank you. Everyone's looking at me. Summer Olympics for me. I do like watching the Winter Olympics, but is it bad to say I like watching the downhill ski for when they crash out and it's like, that's
Wow.
That's really bad, isn't it? Yeah, okay. If someone wants to pray for me, that's fine. Anyway, at the Summer Olympics 2012, it was my stag do, and we had been various things had happened during the weekend, and it was Super Saturday. So it was the night when Mo Farah won, Jessica Ennis, now Ennis Hill won, and we were watching, and we had a big fat curry, and we were watching the Super Saturday. My favourite moment was when Jess Ennis won. However, I didn't actually see it because we got so excited that we all jumped up, and everyone says it's me, but I disagree with them all, said someone hit the button on the remote, and so it went to country file as she crossed the line. So I'm saying my favourite moment is Jessica Ennis Hill winning that medal, but I didn't actually see it happen. But that whole night was just incredible for British. Greg Rutherford won the long jump in that, and it was just a great night, a really fun filled, and it being in London as well. That's my highlight. But yeah, downhill, people crashing out, that's always fun, as long as they're not hurt.
Mine's the same. Sort of, I watch a League of Your Own, and Mo Farah was on, I think it was just before the Olympics.
The Mobot.
And James Corden, as he does, was pushing him to come up with a new celebration if he won the gold. So it went round the audience, and it went round Jack Whitehall and Freddie Flintoff, and they come up with the Mobot. So as soon as it come to Mo's race, I was up on my chair, ready to watching it and praying that he'd won it. And as soon as he won it, everyone was like, "Is he going to do the Mobot? Is he going to do the Mobot?" And as soon as he'd done the Mobot, and it was something I probably remember for a long time. And it's just taken off. He's kept with it, and I think that's what he's known for now, from just being on a TV talk show.
That probably got James Corden his job in America, didn't it? That influence.
Yeah. So that was mine.
Very good. Favorite Olympic moment is difficult. As an American, there are just so many to choose from. Just year after year, and medal after medal after medal. And so I guess favorite Olympic moment would be the dream team winning the gold with the first with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and just probably the greatest basketball team ever assembled. Would be
controversial.
Not at all controversial. Absolute fact. You can't argue.
I just love winding you up.
So that, I guess that would be one of my favorite moments. And if pushed, I guess watching Usain Bolt break the 100-meter record while slowing down.
Is it true that his race preparation was eating chicken nuggets?
Apparently, yeah.
That's the rumor.
Because that is the type of athlete that I am.
No,
not the sprinting.
That is not the type of athlete.
Not the sprinting, but the eating the chicken nuggets.
Yes, that doesn't make you an athlete. That's what you need to learn, John. Eating the chicken nuggets does not make one an athlete.
You should see how fast he eats them.
Well, I have seen. It's disgusting.
It's a work of art.
Absolute disgusting. I think sitting across from him, you wear more than he swallows. It really is gross.
Now.
So yeah, Usain Bolt, that was a great moment. I mean, just a phenomenal athlete as well. So yeah. What about you, Ben?
Mine is, you'll probably remember mine very well too, buddy, because mine is the men's 4x100 meter relay in the Athens Summer Olympics 2004. Jason Gardner, Darren Campbell, Mark Devonish, Mark Lewis Francis. The handovers were perfect.
Yeah.
Everything went right. I remember, I wept for 3 days straight after that. It
Ben?
was one of the most incredible things. Yes.
How old were you at that point?
I was 15.
15. And buddy,
I
how
was
old
15.
were you at that point?
I lost count.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah.
But it was just sensational. It was sensational.
But it can be when it happens that infrequently, moments like that.
Oh.
It's like
Totally.
it's like this
Totally.
it's like the sun coming out in England. When it comes out, you remember it because that happened
not
that
in
day,
Jersey.
didn't it?
Not in Jersey. It's out all the time.
Yeah, remember, Jersey has the most hours of sunlight in a day. Or some
No, that's
kind of
not
fact like that.
That is not a fact. That's not even close to a fact. Okay, Ben, what's your second?
Hang on, before we go there, it's interesting that we've all said Summer Olympic moments.
It is interesting.
Because we did a poll on our Facebook, on our Sing When You're Losing Facebook page, where we talked about the Winter Olympics, and we wanted to see what people's thoughts were on it. And we said there's two options: you love it or you're not a fan. And 76% of people said they love it, with 24% saying not a fan.
Those stats are higher than I expected.
Interesting. It is interesting because
liking it stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. But we all
Very
decided we like the Summer Olympics.
The snowboard cross, that was cool. If I had to watch Winter Olympics, I think that would be the one sport I'd like to see more of.
I would pay to see you try and snowboard, though. Snowboarding is so hard.
Oh, I would definitely. I would love to snowboard.
Hashtag team skiing.
I think we should genuinely try curling. I'd love us to go.
Oh,
no,
yes.
That
would be so good.
Just have one go at curling. Because I don't, essentially, is it just temping bowling on ice? I don't know. and
Garden bowls on ice, isn't it? Yeah.
The only rule is that you're not allowed to, in bowling, you're not allowed to cross the foul line. Whereas this, you don't have a choice because you slide down after.
You're on the ice, yeah.
And just shout at some mates who are cleaning the ice for you. I find it fascinating to watch, genuinely. If there's any curling players out there, and you have...
Do you call them curling players?
Curlers.
Curlers?
Surely they're curlers.
Players?
Curling.
I don't know.
Any huge curlers out there, hook us up.
I can't think of anything that I would like to do less.
Is that the worst?
Than curling.
Is that the worst Winter Olympic sport then? What about the cross-country skiing where you have to shoot the rifle thing?
No. See, that is an American sport.
Yeah.
Combine cross-country skiing with a rifle. That's a sport.
Wow.
We'll move on from there.
I'm so glad we can edit this.
Okay, so Ben, what was your second?
My second one is... this isn't to have a go at Toni Kroos, who is the Real Madrid centre midfielder, because he was being interviewed about the Champions League, and he came out and said the Champions League is the biggest cup competition that he's ever won, and I think he obviously had his club hat on, and obviously he won the World Cup with Germany. But I want to ask you guys, what, in your opinion, if you were a professional footballer, what would you prefer to win? Would you prefer to win the Champions League or the World Cup?
You're talking to three Liverpool fans here, and
yeah, that's true.
Typically, like Jamie Carragher, for example, would say he was very much club before country. As a professional sportsman, I would prefer to win the Champions League, personally. But yeah.
I'm with you on that one. I think if you look at most Liverpool fans, they put their club before country. When the World Cup's on, I don't really watch it, to tell you the truth. If Spain or Argentina is someone on it, I'll watch it. England, I wouldn't go out my way to watch England win the World Cup or anything like that. It's never really took, but one of the best moments of my life was 2005, being in Istanbul. Great experience, and just hopefully I'll get to see it again.
Just for the benefit of some listeners in other parts of the world, what happened in 2005, and because I'd like to relive it as well.
Liverpool were playing AC Milan in the Champions League final with Rafa Benitez as the manager. I think it was after 30 minutes or so, they were 3-0 down. It got to half time. and you think everyone would be like moaning and shouting at the players and stuff, and suddenly You Never Walk Alone started getting sung amongst all the players in the ground, and it was just a great moment. And then Rafa made the change at half time, brought a man on, and then Gerrard got the first one, Smitsa, and then Alonso with the pen, the other way round, and it would come to 3-3, and then went to extra time, and Liverpool won on pens with a great save from Dudek. So it was a great moment.
It was a great moment. So yes, Liverpool won the Champions League in a very dramatic game, and that was exciting. If you're a Liverpool fan, or I think any football fan would think that was an exciting game to watch.
I agree. To be fair, even as Andy was just saying it, then I got goosebumps from remembering it. Like it was just one of the most insane games I've ever seen.
Yeah. But for me, interestingly, as an American, I guess, you grow up with a sort of a stronger sense of patriotism, I guess, of national pride, etc. So I think growing up, I probably always, and we're not, obviously, if you're an American playing in the American leagues, you don't get to play in the Champions League anyway, so you don't have that to pull from. But we would always, I think, say that the World Cup or any national competition would be much more desirable to win than a league competition. And as often not great as we are at soccer, come any World Cup, 90% of Americans will talk about how we're going to win it and how we should win it. And I admire that about the Americans, however unfeasible it might be.
Never let facts get in the way of hope.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to have hope. So I would say, for me personally, if I was a professional player as an American, I think I would still say the World Cup for me would be the key thing to win. The club competitions are good and are exciting, and arguably better football often, because you have the best players in the world playing for the various teams rather than just the best from your country. But I would say the World Cup would still take it for me. Interesting, I texted a friend of mine, former Premier League footballer earlier, and he's English, Premier League player, former Premier League player. And what he said was that he said it was a tough question to ask. He said winning the World Cup always felt like the ultimate one to win. But he also said that English players tend to think differently than other countries about representing their country, largely because of the negative pressure from the fans. So he said that he feels like, as we all know, if you live in England, when the World Cup comes around again, there is this expectation that England should win, or you go the complete opposite side of, oh, we're never going to win, in typical cynical British sort of style. And so he kind of feels that cynicism is too heavy a weight on the players. So they would probably prefer Champions League as well, simply because of the weight of pressure from the fans.
It's interesting that he said from the fans. I've always had that kind of mentality that it's the media that
he says
hypes
press.
it up.
He says press as well. Actually.
Okay, yeah. Because I think the fans go off what a lot of the time the media say, and I understand in terms of some of the drive time stuff that I listen to in the car. When it rolls around every 2 years to a major tournament, and usually we're in it, there is a huge build-up of this could be our year, this is why it's going to be our year, this is these two players or this team or this manager, and it just hypes and hypes and hypes it up. And then so I think where so many people get it from is that kind of, it's interesting that he said the fans.
Yeah, he does say press as well. Yeah, fans and press. Okay, next.
It's me, isn't it?
It is.
I have broken the rules, and it's the second podcast already. Both of my hit for sixes are kind of the same kind of question around it. The two stories that I kind of gripped onto this week was the first one was the West Brom guys who who have avoided punishment in Spain because they allegedly, and I must state allegedly, they kind of stole a taxi.
I'm not sure that bit is alleged. I think we're pretty clear that these guys took a taxi, apparently to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Breaking curfew.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I crave McDonald's sometimes.
But enough to break a curfew.
Yeah. But probably not enough to break a curfew as a Premier League footballer. So got a taxi to McDonald's that we know. And we're also pretty certain that they then drove themselves home in the taxi. Again, that's not alleged.
Okay. Any libel suits addressed to buddy.owen@singwhenyourlosing.com. However,
he just gave you the wrong address. So that's fine.
That's fine. But so that's interesting. They also came forward and said it was them four. In their words, in the story that I read, didn't want the whole team to kind of face the judgment, so they came forward. And the four players are Johnny Evans, Gareth Barry, Jake Livermore, and Boaz Myhill. And so that's interesting. So they were in Spain, potentially stole a taxi / borrowed, went to McDonald's and drove it back. And then on this Monday just gone.
No, let's stop there for a minute, because this is an interesting one. I find this story fascinating because it's generally getting completely whitewashed over in the press. The players, at least so far, there have been no sanctions on them. I think at least two of them started the next match. One of the players is Gareth Barry, who, to my knowledge, has always been someone who's he's always been someone who is known to have quite high character, great guy, great role model. So that's surprising. But also West Brom, they're not having a great season. And at a time when you need your key players to be stepping up and setting an example, you've got these guys who are doing the exact opposite. They're breaking the team rules. Needless to say, if they're at McDonald's, they're probably not upholding the nutritional values that
it's my kind of athlete.
Said
it once, I'll say it.
They're at McDonald's eating chicken nuggets, which works for Usain Bolt, but not the average human. They're tearing down the team. They're breaking the rules. That they've potentially stolen a taxi. There's a lot wrong here.
And actually, in the news reports that I read around this, a lot of it was talking about them, explaining very clearly that the taxi driver has decided not to press charges. I wonder why. And then the rest of the article is all about how Alan Pardew's struggling to stay in control. His owners have sacked some pretty high level people in the club and the people that brought him in, and so you're right. A lot of the press have whitewashed this kind of story and spun it into Alan Pardew took these guys away for a team bonding thing because they're struggling. They did 3 hours of warm weather training, and it seems like it's been a bit of a free for all the rest of the time. And these players are in kind of internal investigations in the club, and so. The question is, for me, is about role models, and we've touched on it before with your hit for six about the White House and the players and all that kind of stuff. That happened, and then also Monday night there was a great upset with Man City and Wigan. Wigan won the game, and there was a pitch invasion, which is potential topic number one to chat about. Then allegedly, there was a fan who said some pretty horrible things to Sergio Aguero and allegedly spat at him. And then Aguero then reacted furiously and goaded the fans. And so the question I've got is, how much pressure do we put on these guys to be positive role models? Should they have this much pressure on them? A lot of the stuff on Twitter, especially with the Aguero thing, is a lot of people have come out and said he should have hit him harder if that's what has happened to him. Famous boxers have come out and said the only thing he did wrong was not hit him harder. But But actually, for young people watching that and for young sportsmen, what are they saying? What are these sports stars saying with these kind of actions? Is it fair to put so much pressure on them to do the right thing, in quotation marks, all the time? What do we think?
So personally, it's really difficult. I think that the players on the pitch, they are the athletes. They're the one everyone is there to watch. And so they have a certain level of responsibility to be able to handle themselves in a particular way. They know that there's pressure. They know people are watching them. They know that people are going to try to get a reaction from them, and so they have to work hard not to give that reaction. However, I think we as fans also have to be aware that we need to control our emotions and our actions, and we need to, being a fan and being either excited or angry is no reason to bail on responsibility, the responsibility of any other human at any other time in life. And I was shocked, again, when I first moved here and went to my first Premier League football match. I was shocked at the anger and emotion in the fans' faces. And you know, you'd have parents with kids 8 years old, and the kids are standing on their chairs and swearing and yelling, and just the amount of aggression in it all.
I was 8 years old, and I cannot be responsible for my actions when I was 8.
I don't understand it. I love sports, grew up with sports in the States. We're passionate about our sports. I mean, the Eagles, after they won the Super Bowl, turned that city upside down a bit. And that's not acceptable either. Why should the players, in some ways, I wonder why the players should be held to any higher standard than the fans? Because we're all human. We all know how we should respond. And sports is no excuse to bail on responsibility.
If you look at the end of the day, the players are human, and players react in different ways to certain situations, and we don't know what that fan said to Ribero to make him snap or stuff like that. And there was an instance, I think it was about a month ago, 2 months ago, was it Jake Livermore? He come off the pitch and he was getting back into the bench, and a fan shouted on something to him about the death of his child.
That's right.
A number of years ago.
Yeah.
And for someone to say that, and he had a split second to make that decision.
Yeah.
And I think when it come out, everyone understood why he did it.
Yeah.
And no punishment was taken, but we just don't know. We expect footballers, everyone says that they get paid enough, they should do this, they should do that. But until that split moment happens, someone says something to you, it's hard not to react sometimes. And if that player the fan did say something to Aguero and it was offensive and it was about his family and stuff like that, he's only human, he's only going to protect his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is true, which is why I think that you can't put all the pressure on the player. The fans have to accept some responsibility as well. You know, the invading the pitch after the match. I don't know if I have a strong feeling one way or the other as to whether fans should invade a pitch after a match. I think for me, if it's done in sort of good humor and celebration, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But when it's done in anger with aggression, then there is obviously a problem.
Yeah, I grew up kind of supporting Liverpool, but spending a lot of time at Tranmere where we're filming at this podcast and I'm recording here. And one year when we the team got promoted and we were here for the game, it went to a penalty shootout, and sure enough, after that, I didn't even want to go on the pitch, but somehow I found myself. We were all on it, and it was a great atmosphere. However, I think it also that kind of anarchy almost lends itself to people who haven't got the best intentions, like potentially this fan who's got up in Aguero's face, to get away with things that they wouldn't even, just isn't okay to do. And yeah, I often find it's interesting because there's a lot probably talked about the difference between rugby players and footballers and the way they speak to the referee, to the other players. You know, the rugby is one of the most brutal games that you can play. And I'm not an overly competitive guy, but I remember playing rugby. If someone hit me hard, the next thing I wanted to do was to go and hit them harder. And just, it's interesting that at the highest level, and I guess all the way down, it's instilled in rugby about the respect. And in football it is, but then it still doesn't tend to... You still see at Sunday League parents shouting at referees and kicking off on referees and all that kind of thing. And it's just... Why is the culture so different?
We work in a lot of schools across Merseyside and a lot of the tougher schools, and we see the kids in both environments. So we see them playing football and we see them playing rugby the week after. And the way them kids act on the pitch a lot of the time is completely different towards the referee, because it's the norm. It's seen as acceptable. It's on the TV where the way the players speak to the referee. It's not right, but how do you change that mentality? Because in rugby, it's been there a very, very long time, so it's instilled in the kids. If you speak to a referee, you're automatically punished, or the teacher brings you off. So if you're not allowed on the pitch because you spoke to a referee the wrong way, you're not going to do it again. And it's going to be hard culture to change the way the players speak to the referee. Yeah. And I wouldn't like to say how you do it, because I don't think there's a right answer. Because does it start at the top and work down, or does it start at the bottom and work up? It's a tough call to make.
I know they're bringing in essentially sin bins in amateur levels of football, and I don't know if they're doing it in the UK, but Jersey, the island of Jersey, is one of the places that have brought in dissent, where you are sin bin for 10 minutes, and if you are negative towards a referee, then you will receive a sin bin, and it's you're 10 minutes off. And that has taken time. I think we're we're over halfway through the season now. So, but it's also been a really positive thing. I think so. If you receive a green card or whatever it is, a sin bin for dissent, and it's only for talking to if you do a bad tackle, you get your normal yellow and red cards. But if you speak to the referee in a bad way, then you receive this sin bin, you go off, and if you come back on, then it's like you go through the normal protocol. You can't, I don't think you can receive multiple sin bins. I think then it's a red card. But I think it's worked. I think it's worked really positively. Certainly, I have never, I as a player have never been abusive towards a referee. I'm generally quite cheeky, and I think referees sometimes don't know how to react to that. They're perhaps sometimes used to swearing.
In my experience, they're not overly fond of sarcasm.
Yeah, no, they do not like sarcasm. They do not like sarcasm.
That's my experience.
And I've tried that as well. But I think even if you speak to them in a really nice manner, sometimes they don't know how to take it. They're so used to being effed and blinded at and all these different words that they're used to. If they have somebody who is generally asking them a question or chatting to them throughout the game, sometimes, I'll hold my hands up. Sometimes I am quite sarcastic, but also sometimes it's done in a general manner and they don't know how to respond to it. So I think the sin bin that's been brought in has worked. I don't know if they're going to roll it out across the rest of the UK or anything like that, but in Jersey we've seen a definite difference.
Yeah, that's an interesting experiment. I personally wouldn't be averse to it. I think again, we talk about culture changing and athletes or sports clubs being able to change a local culture or a national culture. Again, where we're filming now and recording now is Tranmere Rovers, and the club here over the last couple of years under new ownership has just done a great job of getting into the local community, trying to change the culture of the local community, trying to show love and service to the local community, and that's great. But then when the footballers are acting a particular way on the pitch, teaching the kids how to act inappropriately, how to speak inappropriately, wrong language, wrong attitudes, we're then negatively affecting culture, aren't we? And then when fans get upset because they've just lost and go and want to fight other fans or want to destroy the stadium, rip up seats out of a stadium or whatever it is. That's a negative impact on culture, which sports has the capacity to do as well, isn't it? And how do we get rid of it? I don't know. I guess one person at a time. All right. Well, we're gonna close those off now. So we're gonna finish off just by just letting Andy now tell us why we should be excited about the Six Nations. So we know a lot of people are. A lot of people are enjoying the rugby, excited that it's come around. You know, I myself don't love watching rugby. I have the problem making the transition in my head from American football to rugby. So for me, I know this probably is going to make you laugh a lot. For me, rugby is two stop start.
As opposed to American football. Are you okay, man?
How long does a game last in American football?
It depends how you count. It's an hour.
That is outrageous.
Technically, you're spot on.
Technically, it is an hour. It usually around 3.5 if it's a televised game. So rugby for me is just way too stop start. Can't
hang on. Yeah, no. You can't drop a bomb like that and not explain what you mean by stop start.
Yeah, sure. So like, okay, I don't mind as much watching like the Kiwis. I feel they play a more fluid form of rugby, a less kicking form of rugby. They like to keep the game sort of flowing. So what I don't like is all of the kicking. You know, you kick deep to us, we kick back deep to you. We kick it just I just want to see you play. You know, play the game, run with the ball. That's for me what it should be about. And then the scrum. And I've been told by some purists that the scrum in its purest form is a beautiful thing. Well, in my experience of watching rugby, I must not be watching the purest form, because I probably 80% of the scrums I've seen have broken down and had to be reset at least once. And so for me, I'm just, it's annoying. Just get it out. You don't need the scrum in the game. And those guys wouldn't have those big, ugly ears as much as well if they weren't in the scrum. The cauliflower ear wouldn't be such a big issue in the world. Anyway, I'll let the guy who knows about rugby talk about it now.
Thanks for your expertise advice on that, mate.
England are in a good position at the minute. They're building up for the World Cup next year in Japan. Eddie Jones took over a couple of years ago, and he's pretty much got the same team that he was left with, Stuart Lancaster. But he's come in and changed quite a few little things in terms of team culture. I think Lancaster changed it a lot, because after their World Cup in New Zealand, England's were all over the place. They had Tuilangi jumping off the harbour into the water after a few drinks. And so Stuart Lancaster had a tough job when he first took over, and I think he sort of got them on the road to where they are now. He brought in the team culture about respect and enjoyment and the discipline around the rules. Eddie Jones has sort of come in and not told them the rules. He expects the players to come up with them themselves. So he's been building a good culture around that. But coming on to the Six Nations itself, England have started pretty well. They beat Italy.
They did, handily.
Yeah, but that was a good win away. But they've got a tough one this week away at Scotland. And then I think everyone's building up in a couple of weeks when they play Ireland at home.
Yep.
Should be entertaining. But regarding the game itself, compared to NFL, I see both sides of it. I'm a little massive fan of NFL. I don't mind it. I've been to Twickenham to watch one of the games. It was good because it lasted 3 hours, because it was plenty of drinking time in your seat. So
drinking Coca-Cola.
Yeah, of course. So it was a good experience. That's why I quite laughed when you said it's quite stop-start, because you could see the players ready to play, but they couldn't because they were waiting for the TV adverts to come on and stuff like that. And the players are just like ready to go. But I think the Six Nations should be exciting.
So this weekend you've got England at Scotland, Murrayfield. So that should be a big game. England win by how many?
I'm going to go for plus 20.
Okay.
I think it'll be tough, but I think once it gets to 60 minutes, 65 minutes, England shall hopefully just start pushing away. But again, it depends what type of game they play. They are starting to throw it around a bit in terms of the ball. But again, the Six Nations is all about just getting the results because as it's the league system, bonus points do count.
Yeah.
So once they get the 4 tries, the game may open up a bit. But Scotland, a good result last week to beat France. So they're on a bit of a high. And people are expecting a lot of Scotland this Six Nations.
Yep. And then Ireland, Wales, that should be a good game.
Yeah, that'll be tough. I don't think people were expecting the Wales victory the other week. It'll be a lot tougher away at Ireland, and I think it'll be a real test for Ireland to see how much they've come on. But again, I think they're preparing for the big one. I think it's the 17th of March, Paddy's Day at Twickenham.
Yep, be very exciting. And then the one anyone cares about, France, Italy.
I don't know really. It's more than likely France will win, but it's just don't mind. They got beat by Scotland last week, was probably a bit of a blow for them. But hopefully they can get back on track. Well, more than likely they'll get back on track and get ready for the week after.
So we had the discussion briefly last time about the Six Nations just generally, and should it be so often or should it be less often? Do you think people get tired of it, or is it something that rugby fans really look forward to?
It's a tough one really, because if you look at football the other way around, they play a lot of, well, in the past they played a lot of pointless friendlies, and fans are like, well, what's the point of friendlies, where they've introduced this new mini league system to try and boost them up. For me, the Six Nations is good because you know when it is, at what time of year and stuff, but I do think they should introduce relegation. There is teams fighting just below them at the bottom. Georgia, who England trained with last week for a couple of days. It does then make them push, but then if Italy drop down, are they going to come back up? But I think there should be a relegation.
Interesting. Oh, I like that.
So you'd have to grow the league, though, wouldn't you? Or
no, keep it as it is. The bottom
create
team.
One.
But there is a tier under it.
Right.
So there actually is a tier ready there underneath it.
Okay.
But they just stay in that tier.
Okay.
So I think Georgia probably the team pushing to come up.
Oh, very interesting. Fascinating.
Who else plays in that, Andy? Who else?
It's more like the Romania's side, Spain's, all the, like the second tier countries are playing in that below.
That'd be awesome.
So.
Okay, yeah, that would be. I like that a lot.
Well, you're only saying that right now because England are winning.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
But England are trying to help these nations right below. Part of the World Cup legacy was the country took on a lot of these countries to help them develop. So we went across to places like Georgia, Portugal, Spain, Ukraine, Czech Republic, and we went over to them and helped them to show them what we're currently doing to see if they could get on board, try and change some of the stuff they were doing in it, because it was a bit old school. If you look at them countries, some of the stuff we're doing in schools and clubs, they're probably 5-6 years behind what we're doing. So we went over just to share some ideas what we were doing, just to try and, because we want more people playing a game of rugby, we want more better standards. So we just went across a lot. I'm still doing that now.
It's brilliant.
Very good. Well, thank you for coming in and providing a little bit of expertise on rugby, getting us excited about it.
If you could just spend 20 minutes with him explaining how it's not stop-start, that would be brilliant.
Oh, it's so stop-start. But American football is meant to be stop-start because it's just a different game. What a wonderful game.
It's okay.
And for the Americans listening, I'm calling it American football for the sake of most of the other people listening. No, rugby is a great game. It is a great sport. Some incredible athletes out there. Some enormous individuals. And we'll look forward to seeing how England fare. Can they take the crown? Can they beat everyone?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Will we win the World Cup?
Oh, tough question. I think it's going to be close. I think Eddie's building for it, and he has been for the last couple of years. They're actually playing the All Blacks in November at Twickenham. So that will be the first test. I think the first time they played them since 2012. So I think it'll be one to see.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Andy.
pleasure.
And we'd love to have you back sometime if you'd be up for that.
Of course.
We are going to have our interview now. So we've got an interview, pre-recorded interview with a gentleman named Alex Ribeiro. And Alex is from Brazil. He got his start as a Formula One driver. He then started driving the medical car for Formula One. Then went on to become a chaplain for the Brazil World Cup teams, specifically chaplain to the Christians in the Brazil World Cup team, which at times there were up to 6 players on the pitch at any one time who were professing Christians. And you may remember that in 2002, after Brazil won the World Cup, several players lifted their jerseys to reveal T-shirts underneath that said things like, "I belong to Jesus," I think was the one that Kaká was wearing. Now, interestingly, Alex Ribeiro is the person who bought those T-shirts and gave them to those players. And he reveals in the interview how that's one of his proudest moments ever, was when those players were bold enough to lift their jerseys and reveal these T-shirts underneath. So we're going to play a section of that interview that I had with Alex Ribeiro. If you want to listen to the full thing, please check out our Facebook page where we'll post the full interview for you there. On today's Seeing When You're Losing podcast, we have the pleasure and privilege of interviewing Alex Ribeiro. Alex is a former Formula One Grand Prix driver. He's also a former chaplain to the Brazil World Cup team. He's a wonderful man. He's traveled the world. He has run racing teams. Have a listen to a bit of his wisdom now. Can you just tell me, just really quickly, I mean, the book has loads of information, sort of resume of your life, because when I was reading your book, you should be at least 150 years old. You've done so much, but you're obviously not. So could you just give us a quick resume of your life?
Okay. I was born in a Christian environment. 4th generation of Baptists from mother and father, and I grew up in the environment and learned all about it. But I had my own experience of asking Jesus to come into my life when I was almost 9. Although I was very young, it was a huge thing. It transformed my life completely. And then when I grew up in the countryside of Brazil, which was very primitive at that time. My father was a doctor with a missionary call, and when they start building Brasilia, the new capital, we moved to Brasilia. And while at that stage Brasilia was going to be Brasilia, where we went, and in the inauguration of the city, I saw a race. And I was absolutely fascinated. Wow, when I grow up, I'm going to be a racing driver. And that was a huge impression. I had a sense of destiny. This is what I want to do in life. The vocation and the identity. I came out of that race as a racing driver in my mind. So I did all sorts of things between 11 and 18, because in our country we only could race if we had a driver's license. So I went after information about what it takes to be a racing driver. And when I got all the information in the world, I came to the conclusion that it was an impossible dream, because to go race means you need a car, and a car costs much more than a ball. In Brazil, kids play ball in the streets and they run after anything that rolls and they imagine playing football. But I was so bad with the ball, so I had to concentrate on the wheels. And at the age of 18, I didn't have the money to buy the car. And I was frustrated, and my mother sent me to a Christian camp in São Paulo, World of Life. And on the last day of my time there, I did a deal with God. I proposed a deal to God. I said, God, only you can make my dream come true. If you do it, I promise you I'll be a proclaimer of the gospel wherever you send me for the rest of my life. And in 3 months, God orchestrated all sorts of facts that will make a very long story, so we'll have to keep it short. That made possible for us to race, and that includes a wreckage of a VW Beetle. My father had a huge accident, almost died, and when he was able to talk, I went to him at the hospital, asked me for the wreckage of the Beetle, and we turned the remains of the Beetle into a racing car, the ugliest and oddest car in the world. And everybody was laughing about the car because it looked like a helpless car. But in the end of a 6-hour race, we finished second, racing against Porsches and Alphas, and that promoted us from 0 to 100 in 1 weekend. So it opened the doors, and then I was a Brazilian champion in Formula 4, number 1 in the ranking of the Brazilian drivers. Got a sponsor, ended up in England, lived here for 7 years, where we moved from Formula 3 up to Formula 1. That's a story in a nutshell.
Amazing. Yeah. And then there's also the chaplaincy stuff with Brazil that's thrown into that mix.
Yeah, that's a second career.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Formula 1, I didn't have the chance to drive a decent car. That was the end of my career. I lost my sponsors and had to go back home after 7 years in England. It's been a time of a desert, which was very painful, and I was depressed and I was mad at God, and it was a process of suffering. And after 7 years in the wilderness, God opened another door to drive something like Christians in sports, which was in Brazil, the name is Atletas de Cristo, an indigenous ministry. And through this ministry, I've been discipling some football players, consoling
Yeah.
others with the consolations that I was consoled, and all the experience of eating the bread that the devil produced in my life. I was able to help them, and they moved up to top, being top players. They invited me to go to 5 World Cup as a chaplain, together with them. So then we had a chance to see the fulfillment of the vision that God gave me way back in Brazil when I was number 1 in the ranking. A journalist came to interview me, and he wanted to be why Jesus saves, why I have Jesus saves on my cars, and why those youngsters would go to the circuit with me and sing a song, the victory theme that they wrote about it, and why they were giving tracks on the grandstands, the Grand Prix of Life, which was a track where I made analogy between the race and a race of life, and then I explained them everything, including the 4 spiritual laws, the plan of salvation, and they published it in the main newspaper of the country. Wow. And to my astonishment, I came to see that I spoke to 400,000 readers of that newspaper in 1 weekend, from a pulpit that moved at 120 miles an hour. So, and there I realized that was my vision and mission. That's why I always use it. But I thought I was going to be a world champion. Then I could address the world, and it didn't work. That was one of my greatest frustrations of the first career.
Yeah.
But in Yokohama, when Brazil became penta champion, 5 times world champion, and they showed the shirts that I brought and convinced them to wear, I saw that on the grandstand, on the big screen at Yokohama, and I knew that was being broadcast via satellite for half the population of the planet. I thought, wow. Now you can take me home. I saw the accomplishment of the vision.
Yeah.
So that was very fulfilling. Of course, there has been reactions to that. Now they can't do it. It's forbidden. So, but we are still carry on the torch and trying to help new generation of players and drivers. Here's one. Who won all those trophies.
Yes.
For Jesus Saves Car.
Yes. So your mission statement, I guess, would be reaching the world for Christ through the universal language of sport. Have I said that correctly?
100% correct.
Yeah. So why do you think sport is a powerful enough tool to do this?
It's a language. It's a value of our culture in time. It's universal language. I believe God created it. So when a man run 100 meters in less than 10 seconds, everybody understands it. So when Tafarel, the Brazilian goalkeeper, stopped the penalty kicks, which decided the World Cup, and was on his knee pointing to heaven, that image was beamed by satellite to half the population of the planet. So the message is still going. So in a way that it can be understood by people who didn't speak the language, but through the sports that's possible. So I think a lot that will happen from here until the grand arrival, in terms of proclamation, is going to be through sports. And this is where he planted me. Music is another universal language, arts. So other people do it by doing social work, by doing teaching. God gave different talents to different people for accomplish different missions in our world of influence.
With chaplaincy, so I'm affiliated with a group in the UK called Sports Chaplaincy UK, and the when you think about chaplaincy and evangelism, groups like Christians in Sport, Ambassadors in Sport, those various groups are very openly evangelistic. They very much from the front say, our goal is to help people meet Christ. As a chaplain in this country in the 21st century, the goal isn't or can't be stated as being to help people meet Christ. It's much more, the phrase here is to be pastorally proactive and spiritually reactive. So we can't preach the gospel to them in any sort of way until they ask us to. Now, your time as chaplain, as I've seen and read, you were always very upfront about your faith and about your desire to work with the Christian athletes. But here it's a constant tension between evangelism and pastoral support. How do you respond to that? How should chaplains here respond to that, do you think? How do we cross that barrier from being just loving people to evangelists?
Well, I think the best way to do it is to help the athletes that are under our chaplaincy efforts to live a real Christian life. Because if a person lives a real Christian life, and if he's in fine tune with above, with Jesus, to a point that what Jesus said in John 14:23, if one loves me, he will obey my commandments, and my Father will love him, and we will come and abide inside or dwell in him. So if we have the triple guys inside us, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and our lights shine as a reflex of their presence in our lives, we don't even have to talk too much. Our lifestyle and presence will reflect the presence of Jesus in our heart, and this is the best way. What's lacking is the real product. So when Coca-Cola puts a big billboards and TV adverts and everything, and you are convinced by the propaganda, and you enter to a place thirsty, and you ask for a Coke, and if the barman will say, "Oh, unfortunately we have run out of it," it's a big disappointment because the product was not available. So we are the product of the transformation that God can do in our lives. So if we can live real Christian lives, we are the product that people are looking for. Everybody's looking for peace. Everybody's looking for love, for void, the inner vacuum, you say, or emptiness.
Yeah, empty, yeah.
If you have something to give and to help and to show the presence of Jesus in this world, you can help in many ways and share it, what is dear to you, because people will say, "I want to be like this. What have you got that I don't have?" So this is what we try to teach to the guys we are discipling. When we talk about chaplaincy, it reminds me of the war, when the chaplain would go with the troop to help them cope with the pressure. And but there is another word which I like, is mentoring, and that's when you have an ongoing relationship with the athletes, and then you are doing mentoring, discipleship. You are building up a person growth in their faith and their relationship with God.
You mentioned earlier about your desert times, which again you talk quite a lot about in your book. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was what you said about identity. Mm-hmm. You spend quite a lot of time discussing the importance of identity. Yeah. At one point, you used the phrase, you felt like a nobody man. Mm-hmm. I think there are potentially a lot of people who can relate to this.
Yeah.
I think your honesty is refreshing. Mm-hmm. You know, you're very honest about your disappointments, your failings. Mm-hmm. And when you say that, I felt at this point, you know, you're a professing Christian. Mm-hmm. You're very open about your faith. Yeah. And yet you're saying, but I feel like a nobody man. Mm-hmm. How did you work through that? Mm-hmm. What advice can you give some of us who, whether we are professing Christians or not, feel a bit like a nobody man at the moment? How do we move beyond that?
Yeah. Well, my first identity when I was 11 was being a racing driver. And then when I was in Formula One, who are you? I'm a racing driver. So in the world, you are known by your profession. I'm a dentist, I'm a doctor, I'm a preacher. Or what I have. Bill Gates is the richest man of his time. So identity is related to how much you have or what you do. And suddenly when I lost my sponsors and I was left on foot, I lost my wheels as well. So when I went to a hotel and you have to fill in the form profession, and I would ask Barbara, what am I now? I don't know what I'm. That's when I lost my identity. But then after going through the hard times, I realized that that was a functional identity. And my real identity, the one that nobody can take away from me, is that I'm blessed creature of God, promoted later on to Son of God. When I accept Jesus as my Savior, I was, according to John 1, we become children of God when we say yes, Jesus, accept Jesus, and that identity nobody can take away from me. But it took me a long time to move from here to the heart,
sure,
and to have the conviction and to live by this new identity. And this is how I cope with that. I had to learn, and now it's part of my system. I don't have to think twice. This is my eternal identity.
It took some pretty major disappointments, though, didn't it, for you to get to that point?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how, just I guess over the last, it's probably been the last 10 years?
Yeah. Yes, when you are at the end of your hopes and you don't know what else can you do to help yourself, then you realize that somebody stronger than you can do it for you. It's what is in the top of the selling books are the self-help books. Self-help is very good, but it's very limited. It's limited to what I can do to myself. It's like if you get stuck on mud, if you're in a 4x4 car, you just can switch it to four-wheel tractions, and this is self-help. But when you have help from above, you have infinite power to get out. Even a good 4x4, if the two differentials hit the ground, so you're stuck. So that's when you realize what can do for you is it's limited less. So it's just a question of faith and trust and put in practice what is written on the owner's manual of our lives, the good book.
Great.
And then just one more thing too.
Sure. Yeah.
When Paul said, "When I'm weak, then I'm strong," this is how it works. Because when I'm weak, I lose all the hope in myself, and then I can hope for a higher power, a higher identity, a higher solution, and a higher presence, which is the presence of God in our lives.
We hope that you enjoyed the interview with Alex. Please do check out the Facebook page if you want more of that interview. Thanks for listening to our second podcast. Please go check us out on iTunes. Leave a review if you would like. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and anywhere else that you would like to look on social media. You can find us. Drop us a note. Let us know if there are things that you would like us to talk about, or there are sports, faith, and culture issues that are affecting you.
All the cricket people are going to come out now.
We'd love to hear from all of you, all four of you in this country who are into cricket. Please feel free to to email or tweet us. I've just upset my godson again by saying that. So we do love cricket as well as rugby and table tennis. aka ping pong.
Now we've got a national champion of the cutting household here. I think we need to have a big game at some point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we would love to hear from you. So please do get in touch with us, and we will see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.